Well, Ikenga Ugochinyere joins us now. He's the President, National Youth Council of Nigeria. Good morning and thank you for joining us today. Well, many look into this case with, from different perspectives. First and foremost, some say, well, look, if he's accused, if he's guilty, let the courts, due process take its course, which many think that that is what is going on. What do you think?
Chamberlain, good morning, and thank you so much, and your team also. And I want to use this opportunity to also thank you and the media for speaking out, also during my illegal detention. I appreciate the effort and the support the media gave to me while I was in illegal incarceration. Back to what you asked, there's one fact that we need to know. How did we get to this point? What was this road that these people took that is putting the country in problem? You will remember that when they were about to constitute the National Assembly, the 8th Senate, you saw the maneuver by the APC to ensure that a particular candidate emerged even before the senators went into the chamber. And you know very well that Section 53 or 54 of the 1999 Constitution said that senators shall elect the president and the Senate among themselves. And it defined even the grounds for the quorum in Section 6, where it says 1/3. But you saw in the morning that the national chairman of the APC called a meeting at the International Conference Center, which he's saying that meeting is the biggest mistake of his life. And by the time he called this meeting, notice had been served by the clerk of the National Assembly that the Senate and the House of Rep will be inaugurated. And they choose to go to International Conference Center to have a different meeting where they plan how they can bring in a particular candidate they wanted. It was at that moment that we started the journey to slide into this political anarchy you are seeing. At the end of that election, the party chose not to respect the outcome of that election, which is high level of political intolerance. Democracy is all about number. And when they went into the parliament, and at the end of voting, the Senate president came on top, unopposed, and the Kuremadu came in as the deputy Senate president. What Nigerians expected was for the APC to look beyond the process that led to that election and then move into governance. But it looks like the Senate President said in his speech yesterday, there are some people who felt that unless they have it their own way, there is not going to be any peace. And you must know that the parliament is the heartbeat of any democracy. If you neutralize the parliament, you have completely ambushed democracy. So this is a battle, not even a battle of the senator, but it's a battle for survival of democracy. It is a battle that will help us reduce the growing culture of impunity and intolerance. Democracy is all about numbers. It must not be the way somebody wanted. And now, you know how the issue of CCT trial started with a judge who the federal government has already indicted for corrupt actions and recommended his removal. But the federal government chose to arraign him before that judge. And he raised serious alarm that knowing that this judge has something hanging on his neck, he might use him to save his own self. And nobody listened to that. But 1 year into the tenure, maybe some people felt, oh, the Senate president has spent 1 year in office. From our projection, we're not been able to throw him out of that place within 6 months. So let's look for another way we're going to achieve that. And surprisingly, the issue of the trial, the FCT High Court, on the issue of conspiracy and forgery, and I came up. And if you look at the way it was planned, you want to arraign the Senate president and the deputy Senate president. Senators will come to sit in. There will be no head of the parliament. Maybe in the midst of that confusion, possibly some people will gather like they did in Kogi and announce themselves principal officers of the parliament.
Let me ask you before you
throwing
proceed.
The parliament into a state of political hiatus.
But before you submit a little further, let me just bring this in.
And you also...
Can you hear me? Just a minute. If they have nothing to worry about, I beg your pardon, if they didn't forge those documents, do they have anything to worry about, being docked or not?
Okay, no, of course, there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to worry about 100%, but you need to understand that when this desperation stepped in, they have every right as every Nigerian to raise a land. They have every right as every Nigerian to defend themselves. Because when you say you're charging somebody for conspiracy and forgery, possibly there should have been a meeting where the Senate President attended a meeting before he became Senate President, where they conspired to change the rule. There must have been a rule that was changed. You know very well in the 7th Senate, he was just an ordinary senator. He was not part of the management of the National Assembly. Then when you get to the 8th Senate, he was a senator-elect the very moment he stepped into the chamber to be inaugurated. So at what point did he forge the rule? Is he the clerk of the National Assembly? Was he the outgoing Senate president? So if there was any issue, and also you know that when they were doing interrogation, which the police accepted, they never invited him and they were mad. And you remember that by virtue of Section 379 of the Administration of Criminal Justice System, for you to have a competent charge before the court, you must attach it with the statement of the defendant. And if you don't have that, the charge is defective. And you know it, everybody Nigerians know that there was no time the Senate President or the Deputy Senate President was invited. So now they have started on a procedural error. They have started on a level that is showing that there's high level of desperation. And this charges was brought in. Even the police report never even indicted him, because there's even no way they will indict him, because he's not part of the management and he was not a senator at the time. He was not a senator, he was just a senator-elect. So because of the desperation, because of the way you see that they are being hunted left, right, and center, definitely there should be concerns. And people have to stand up to me at this particular moment to defend the sacred independence of the parliament, which is the heartbeat of every nation's democracy.
Well, so to your mind, do you think that there was any case of forgery anywhere? It's just this just being cooked up, or, you know, could that really be a case of forgery?
Mope, first of all, the document we are talking about is the document of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. For you to say that something was forged, there must be an original. And who has custody of this document? The management of the National Assembly. And when these people wrote the petition, they sent to the police, they never said Saraki Ekweremadu forged any document. So the question Nigerians will be asking, which is why the Senate raised some serious concern about the capacity of the Attorney General. How do you prefer this charge against the Senate President when you never invited him to ask him, were you the one who forged this? And when you knew also that he was not a principal officer in the 7th Senate, neither was he a principal officer in the 8th Senate at the beginning stage, he was just a senator-elect. Then you bring it and then include his name. To me and to most keen observers, it was just a question of arraign them in court and possibly send them to Kuje, and there will be no Senate President and Deputy Senate President. So in that case, you force them out and then getting some people to act. So and remember that this thing we are talking about this forgery, if you remember the judgment of Justice Kolawole in 2015, if you permit me, I will read an extract from his judgment. He said, the issue as relating to the Senate rules and standing orders are firstly a purely domestic legislative matter. But where allegation of forgery is made, it is for the court to reflect deeply whether it is not an allegation which the Senate Committee on Rules can validly investigate and to take steps within own internal proceeding to nullify any such standing orders found to be irregular. All of these are my thinking as a way to protect the integrity and independence of the National Assembly, so that neither the executive arm, as consulted by the defendant, nor by the judiciary should be allowed to pry into a matter which the National Assembly, as the legislative arm of government, can deal with, applying its own rule and standing order. I am very worried that a dangerous precedent is not being set for the 8th National Assembly to have its internal proceedings being regulated, perhaps supervised by other arms of government. This whole thing, like Justice Kolawole laid to rest, goes to show that the independence of the parliament, their ability to make and regulate their own proceeding, which Section 60 of the 1999 Constitution covered, gives them that power to make those internal regulations. Just like the president can make, the SGF office can make internal public service rules here and there and change them and so on and so forth. Now, trying to criminalize the internal proceedings of the parliament, to me, is a slight to democratic anarchy and tyranny. And I must say this, what led us to this is people's ability not to accept defeat. People's ability not to understand that democracy is a bad number. People's ability to understand that views of other people must be respected.
Just let me come in here. I think you've taken us back in time 1 year ago, how they emerged, talking about the leadership of the National Assembly, specifically of the Senate. But if you say this, from your analysis, it would seem as if you smell some vendetta somewhere. But looking at what has transpired, and you trying to link it to some people being locked up in Kuje prison, it doesn't look as though that is, because it would seem as if due process has been followed so far in getting to the bottom of this whole issue.
Well, Suleiman, you will understand that if you look at even the charge, the witnesses that they have, when you talk about due process, like I told you before, the issue of the condition precedent before charge can be preferred in a criminal matter has not been complied with. The issue of also having a proof of evidence that links the accused to the crime is not there. He is not a principal officer. He was not a member of the management committee of the National Assembly, so there's even no way he was going to be involved in forgery of any rule, if I thought any rule was forged. And also the parliament itself, through a unanimous resolution, has said that their rule is valid. It is the parliament that has custody of this rule, that the ones that will tender the original in court. And if you, and like when they raise the issue of he's being witch-hunted by the federal government, people say, what is the fact? The two key witnesses, Ita Enang is the presidential advisor to the president on National Assembly matter. Senator Babafemi Ojudi is the political advisor to President Mohamed Buhari. That are the two key witnesses. The other 8 witnesses are 8 APC senators who were part of the meeting to say he will not be Senate president. So without even consulting a soothsayer, this is purely a federal government offensive. But the question we will ask ourselves, why does the federal government want to lay ambush for the parliament? And that was why the Senate president said that we are running a government within government. Because when an arm of government goes all out to make sure it neutralizes the other, and for whatever purpose, then it raises serious concern on the survival of democracy. And my own concern is that the independence of the parliament, look at the state assemblies that we are complaining about. One of the things that put the governors in trouble, that they control the state house of assembly. State house of assembly,
not to worry,
we're making laws for governors even in their bedroom, because there was no independence.